how do you think that kind of leads me to my first question, which is how do you think, positive thoughts and positivity plays a role in navigating, career transition? What do you think about that?
Well, I think positivity plays a role, honestly, in everything in our lives. And sometimes inside my work with John Gordon, we say we're not positive because life is easy. We're positive because life is hard. And when you talk about a career transition, transitions are hard. And if we let negativity and self doubt and terrible self talk and all of that stuff creep in when we're trying to make a transition that, in theory, is going to be a great new thing for us. It can slow us down, it can shut us down, it can set us back. So, positivity is everything, really. And all of our lives starts in the mind. Everything starts with our mindset.
Well, and I agree with that. And it's easier said than done, right? Like you go through a season in your life, especially if that transition wasn't something that you asked for, right? Um, and we go through these seasons, and I mean, not just career transition, it could be maybe you're saying goodbye to relationships, meaning, maybe you got a divorce, maybe you're moving into a new season of your life, right? And how does somebody really take a moment to reframe their mindset? Because again, it is all about perception. It's either half empty or half full, right? The glass. So, but when you're going through it, your emotions, it's like, oh, you just want to cry. You're like, I just lost my job, or I just got my wife's divorcing me, or whatever. How do you go, no, 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 no? How do you flip that script and look at it half full?
Well, I'll give you two examples. I'll give you a personal one and a work one. And I love that you use the word reframe because that's really what it's all about. So I'll give you the personal example first. And that is my husband and I are very recent empty nesters. So our youngest son just went off to college. And when he left, I was devastated. I was walking around the grocery store like, I don't need to buy that, and I don't need to buy that, and it's so sad, and my house is so quiet, and like, what, empty nest, empty nest, empty nest, right? And then someone said to me, your nest is not empty, your nest is open. And your nest is open and ready and prepared whenever they want to come back and come home and be welcomed and loved and all things. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty good reframe. That's not even my own idea. So, but I just loved that idea of just viewing it as an open nest. And now every time my kids come home, both of my kids were home this weekend, and it was like, come on in, welcome. And then I can get all the groceries and I can do all the things. And maybe I'm going to baby them a little bit, but just thinking about it as an open nest and then looking forward to the cool things that come with the empty nest. So now I get to travel with my husband. Now we get to go to both of their colleges for all the football games and have fun and hang out with them as adults and, just all the new things that come with that. So I think it's really that reframing of this isn't all sad and doom and gloom, but there are lots of cool things that come with something new, even though maybe I was sad when they hit the bricks, right? Like when we moved them in and they left. So that's a personal example. And then I'll share a work example as well. And that was when I left the Hershey Company. So I spent a couple of decades in sales and sales leadership with the Hershey Company. I was selling candy and leading teams all over the US. And I needed to go, and it was time to leave. So it took a couple of years of kind of thinking about it and planning and all the things. But when I left almost 10 years ago now, I started working with John Gordon. And for those who don't know John, he's a best-selling author and speaker, like multiple best-selling author and speaker. And I wanted to be a speaker. And there were a lot of things that led to it. But I had used John's work from the energy bus inside my team at Hershey, and I saw how much it worked. And it just planted this huge seed inside of me that I was like, oh, I need to share this work in a bigger way. And I want to speak about the energy bus. Well, guess what? I left my big corporate, well compensated position, and I started out speaking about the energy bus for free and for very, very little money. And so when you go through a change like that, of course, the self doubt is going to pop in. And of course, you're going to say after 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years of hustling. Who am I to do this? And maybe I should go back and get a corporate job and all the things. And it's hard not to let that stuff crop into your mind, especially when you used to be a big contributor to your household financially, and now you're not. And what kind of identity things are tied to those. So there's a lot. So I had to really, really work on my mindset during that time. And I had to learn how to believe in myself and how to reframe that whole idea of starting over from what I sometimes would say, oh, I'm starting from scratch. I'm starting from nothing. But the truth is, I wasn't starting from nothing. I was starting from over 20 years of business experience that led me to start building, that gave me the skill set to build what I was doing now. So, and the other thing I want to say about that, just around the idea of reframing that you mentioned at the very beginning, is I had to go back and look at the record, because when I started saying to myself, who are you to be a speaker? Who are you to do all this stuff? Then I went back and I looked at the record of my career at Hershey, and I was like, oh, I taught that training class for a whole year. I spoke on the national sales meeting stage this year and that year and this year. And I presented to senior leadership all the time, once a quarter, and all the things. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. I actually do have a lot of experience being a speaker. But I had to remind myself. And so we have to go back and kind of look at the record and remind our brain that we're not really starting from scratch when we make a change, whatever change that is. Even you even mentioned, divorces or relationship changes or job changes. You got to look at the record and what you've already gotten through and show your brain that you've done that. And so you did it then. Why can't you do it now?